carefully, woman. Heaven is speaking to you right now. You've been wrestling with questions in the silence of your heart, questions about why certain people walked away, why things that once brought joy now feel empty, and why you sense a divine pull to stand still when everything in you wants to chase. The Lord says, be still, my daughter. I am not punishing you. I am positioning you. There comes a moment in every woman's journey when God separates her emotions from her environment so she can finally hear his voice without interference. You're not losing your passion. You're gaining your peace. You see, the strength of a woman is not measured by how loudly she fights to be understood, but by how calmly she stands when misunderstood. There is a time when God will test your silence, not to weaken your spirit, but to teach you that quietness is a weapon of the wise. When storms arise, the woman anchored in divine identity does not move. She knows who she is. She doesn't beg for attention. She carries presence. She doesn't chase what left. She honors what remains. Her calmness is not passivity. It is divine confidence clothed in peace. There's a realm where God elevates his daughters, not through public applause, but through private surrender. In that secret place, he trains you to release the need to control what is not meant for you. Some people left because your growth made them uncomfortable. Some doors closed because your next chapter required peace, not noise. God is saying, I had to separate you to secure you. When you stop clinging to what drains your spirit, you make room for what feeds your destiny. Every powerful woman must go through a season where God teaches her emotional discipline. You will want to explain yourself, defend yourself, prove your worth, but heaven will whisper, don't speak. Because not every battle requires your voice. Some battles require your stillness. The silence of a spiritually mature woman shakes darkness more than the words of a reactive one. When you reach that level of restraint, you stop being moved by offense and start moving in obedience. That is where authority lives. Woman, this message is not to make you hard, it's to make you holy. You're being refined, not rejected. What feels like isolation is actually divine insulation. God is protecting the purity of your spirit from the contamination of emotional chaos. You are not being abandoned, you are being anointed. Every time you choose peace over panic, wisdom over reaction, and purpose over pain, heaven takes note. You're not walking away, you're walking up. The Lord is calling his daughters to rise with discernment, to know when to speak and when to be still, when to hold on and when to let go. This is not weakness, this is mastery. You are learning to rule your emotions instead of letting them rule you. The woman who governs her inner world cannot be shaken by her outer world. That's why the enemy fights your peace. Because once you master it, he loses control over your direction. So woman, hear this clearly. You were never meant to be controlled by what changes. You are meant to be anchored in what remains. God is after your stability. He is training you to be unmoved, unshaken, and unstoppable. A vessel of wisdom who doesn't need to prove her worth, because her worth has already been spoken by the one who called her. True peace begins when a woman no longer allows her emotions to be ruled by what she cannot control. Many women live in silent warfare, fighting battles that were never theirs to fight. They try to manage every situation, fix every misunderstanding, and hold together relationships that God himself allowed to loosen. Peace is never found in the effort to control. It is found in the decision to trust. When a woman stops tying her emotional stability to the actions or approval of others, she begins to discover the quiet authority of her own spirit. The storms may still rage, but they no longer have permission to define her atmosphere. The most powerful moment in a woman's life is when she realizes that she can feel deeply and still remain steady. God never called her to suppress her emotions, but to govern them with wisdom. It is easy to be calm when life cooperates, but divine peace is tested in moments when everything around her seems unpredictable. When she chooses to respond from a place of faith instead of fear, she disarms the chaos that once dictated her behavior. This is not emotional coldness. It is spiritual alignment. It is the realization that peace is not something she waits for. It is something she chooses every single day. There is great strength in letting go of what you cannot control, because what you release, God can redeem. When a woman learns to surrender outcomes, she invites heaven to intervene where her hands could not reach. The moment she stops wrestling with what she cannot change, she begins to rise in power. Her calmness becomes her crown, her stillness her shield, and her peace the undeniable evidence that she has learned to trust the one who governs all things. A woman's greatest power is her ability to remain centered in her divine purpose, even when everything around her tries to pull her off course. Life will always present distractions, delays, and disappointments designed to make her doubt who she is and what she carries. The enemy understands that if he cannot destroy her, he will attempt to distract her. He will send noise to cloud her focus, people to drain her energy, and situations to make her question her worth. But when a woman is grounded in purpose, she cannot be easily moved. Her direction is not determined by emotion. It is guided by revelation. She knows that her assignment is greater than her feelings. Every woman who carries destiny must face seasons of resistance. There will be moments when she feels unseen or misunderstood. Yet, it is in those very moments that her spiritual roots are being strengthened. Purpose is not proven in comfort. It is proven in consistency. Staying centered means choosing faith. When fear whispers it's not working, it means holding to conviction when the world encourages compromise. A woman who is anchored in divine purpose becomes a force that confusion cannot sway. She operates from clarity, not chaos. The world honors performance, but heaven honors alignment. When a woman refuses to be shaken by external shifts, she becomes a vessel through which divine order flows. Her stability becomes a testimony, her endurance a sermon, her peace a prophecy. She walks with quiet confidence, not because everything is perfect, but because she knows her position in God is secure. Every challenge becomes a classroom, every delay a teacher, every hardship a reminder that her assignment is not about where she stands, but who she stands with. Her purpose becomes her compass, keeping her steady when the world turns. God does not build queens in comfort. He builds them in moments where silence must speak louder than reaction. Growth rarely happens in the applause of men. It happens in the quiet spaces where God removes every crutch that once defined security. In these seasons, a woman begins to understand that silence is not weakness. It is strength in its most refined form. There are times when God will deliberately withhold explanations, not to confuse her, but to teach her how to trust without clarity. The making of a queen always involves a process where her voice must mature before it can reign. She learns to wait, to listen, and to discern the language of heaven, even when it seems like heaven is silent. A woman of destiny is often trained in hidden places. Her silence becomes her sanctuary, and her restraint becomes her revelation. It is there that she discovers the authority of stillness, the kind that intimidates chaos because it cannot provoke her. When she stops reacting to everything that demands attention, she starts hearing what truly deserves it. God uses the silence to separate her emotions from her mission, teaching her that not every situation requires a response, and not every battle deserves her presence. In these quiet seasons, heaven molds her heart for greater responsibility. Every time she chooses silence over struggle, she gains strength unseen by others. The same God who called her will prove her in the unseen. He allows her to face moments where she could defend herself, but chooses peace instead, where she could retaliate, but chooses grace. That's the making of divine royalty. True queens are not crowned because they fought the loudest. They are crowned because they mastered themselves when silence was their only weapon. When a woman learns to respond instead of react, she shifts from being emotionally managed to spiritually governed. Reaction is the natural reflex of the soul, but response is the deliberate decision of a spirit led by wisdom. The difference between the two is maturity. A reaction is impulsive. It is born out of emotion, pain, or pride. But a response is intentional. It flows from discernment, understanding, and divine perspective. When a woman pauses before she speaks, prays before she decides, and listens before she acts, she steps into a realm of authority that emotion alone cannot sustain. This is where God begins to trust her with influence because her heart has learned to follow his rhythm, not her own impulses. There are times when everything in her wants to answer back, defend herself, or prove her point, yet heaven whispers, "Stay still." It is not silence born of fear, but control born of revelation. Every time she chooses to respond in peace rather than react in frustration, she disarms the power of the situation over her. Her calmness becomes her crown, her restraint becomes her weapon, and her wisdom becomes her strength. In those moments, she begins to operate not from emotion, but from authority. Reaction gives power to others. Response keeps power within. A wise woman knows that her energy is sacred and her peace is expensive. She understands that not every conflict deserves her presence and not every offense deserves her attention. By responding with divine intention, she begins to manifest the mind of God in human form. Gracious yet firm, gentle yet powerful. Her measured words carry weight. Her silence speaks volumes, and her composure commands respect. She no longer lives at the mercy of her emotions. She becomes the master of them. The moment you stop seeking validation from those who cannot discern your value, you begin walking in the authority of your assignment. Every woman must come to a turning point where she decides to no longer live for applause, approval, or acceptance. Validation is a form of bondage when it comes from the wrong source. The world will always measure worth by appearance, status, and comparison. But heaven measures worth by purpose, obedience, and authenticity. When a woman learns that her value was established by God before anyone had an opinion about her, she becomes untouchable by rejection. She realizes that people's inability to see her worth does not reduce it. It only reveals their level of vision. The need for validation often arises from past wounds, from moments where love was conditional and affirmation was rare. But the Spirit of God heals those places by reminding her, you are already chosen. When she embraces this truth, she no longer chases recognition, she carries it. Her presence becomes her statement, and her confidence becomes her language. She stops auditioning for rooms she was born to own. When you understand that your worth is not up for debate, you stop negotiating your peace just to be understood. True authority begins where the need to please ends. The woman who is affirmed by God walks differently. She speaks with purpose, loves without fear, and stands without apology. Her confidence is not arrogance, it is revelation. She understands that she is not defined by who applauds her, but by who assigned her. Every time she chooses to walk away from validation that comes from man, she walks closer to the confirmation that comes from heaven. And in that moment, she no longer performs for approval. She manifests divine intention. God trains his daughters to release what no longer carries divine instruction so they can embrace what aligns with their destiny. There are seasons when God will begin to remove people, opportunities, and even dreams that once felt right. It is not punishment, it is pruning. A woman who walks with God must learn that not everything good is still God ordained. Some things serve their purpose for a time, but purpose evolves, and so must she. The art of letting go is sacred because it requires trust in the unseen. When a woman releases what no longer carries life, she creates space for what heaven is preparing to place in her hands. Often, what keeps many women stuck is not what's missing, but what they refuse to release. God cannot fill what is already full. He cannot pour new oil into vessels still clinging to yesterday's residue. Every time he asks her to let go, it is because he is preparing to increase her capacity. What looks like loss is often divine exchange. He removes attachments that drain her strength to make room for alignments that feed her spirit. She must understand that release is not rejection, it is redirection. The things that walk away are not always enemies. Sometimes they are escorts to the next dimension. The ability To release without resentment marks the maturity of a kingdom woman. She has learned that her destiny is too precious to be entangled in what no longer carries grace. She doesn't mourn over doors that close because she trusts the hand that closed them. Her faith has advanced beyond feelings. She no longer chases what left her. She blesses it and moves forward because deep within she knows that anything truly connected to her purpose will never need to be forced to stay. A woman who learns to guard her inner peace becomes the atmosphere changer in her home, her relationships, and her generation. Peace is not simply the absence of conflict. It is the presence of divine order within the heart. When a woman carries peace, she doesn't enter a room and adapt to its tension. She enters and shifts it. Her calm spirit speaks louder than her words, and her composure becomes contagious. People draw strength from her presence because her peace testifies of a deeper trust in God. When everything around her is uncertain, she becomes the steady heartbeat that reminds others that faith is still stronger than fear. A woman who guards her peace understands that it is sacred. She does not allow gossip, offense, or negativity to rent space in her spirit. She knows that her atmosphere is a reflection of her inner state, so she chooses daily to maintain alignment with heaven's rhythm. Instead of reacting to the chaos of others, she governs the energy within her. This inner discipline is not passive. It is powerful. It means choosing stillness over struggle, grace over gossip, wisdom over wrath. Her peace is her protection. It is the wall that keeps her purpose safe from unnecessary warfare. Generational transformation begins with a peaceful woman. Her children learn stability through her calm. Her partner draws strength through her steadiness. Her community senses safety through her wisdom. The woman who carries peace is not loud, yet her influence is undeniable. She becomes a living reminder that divine authority flows through quiet strength. When a woman guards her inner world, she becomes heaven's vessel of balance on earth. The storms may come, but they cannot stay because her presence commands alignment with divine order. Woman, hear this with the full weight of heaven's truth. You were never created to live at the mercy of what happens around you, but to manifest the power of who lives within you. The battles you faced were never meant to break you. They were designed to build you into a vessel that can carry glory without crumbling under pressure. God is calling you higher to a life ruled not by emotion, but by revelation. You are not ordinary. You are a divine design wrapped in purpose, and your peace is proof that you have learned to walk with heaven's rhythm. Every trial that once shook you was a classroom in disguise, teaching you how to remain still in the storm, how to choose faith over reaction, and how to rise above the noise with dignity. You are entering a season where your composure will speak louder than your words, your silence will carry more power than confrontation, and your peace will open doors that your striving never could. The same God who refined you in hidden places is about to reveal you in divine timing. So stand firm, woman of God. Guard your atmosphere, honor your calling, and never again trade your peace for validation. You are not being overlooked. You are being preserved. You are not behind. You are being positioned. The world doesn't need a louder woman. It needs a wiser one. Heaven is waiting for the sound of your stability, because when you walk in peace, you walk in power. And when you walk in power, nothing, no rejection, no delay, no disappointment can stop the destiny that God Himself has already written with your name on it.